Welcome to the I'm Here to Give podcast, folks. I'm joined by my wife, Anna Rimhagen, and we're going to explore a very exciting development for our business, which we call Care and Growth by Sprints. And it's really been an innovation that Anna has introduced to our business over the last 5 years or so, and kind of leans on agile methodology. It's sort of an integration of agile methodology and our Care and Growth leadership model. With that, having said that, Anna, can we what do you understand by Care and Growth by Sprints?
I work with many leadership teams, and they're often quite overwhelmed with so many things to do, and especially if you're in a big corporate, you're sort of hit over the head regularly by very tight deadlines with big chunks of works that suddenly need to have been done. And so many leadership teams live under a constant stress, and stress not only because there's lots to do, but also because you never know what's around the corner, sort of.
Right.
So previously, I've worked with lots of development teams and service teams, and there, the agile methodology is very common.
Mm.
And one of the aspects of agile way of working is to have a cadence to your work. You know it because we've done it in the Schuitema team for a couple of years now.
Right.
That, for example, I like the month length for a management team or leadership team. Every beginning of a month, you do a plan for the coming month, and you take into account what prioritized work do we have, and what is the most important work during this coming month, and you record this so that you have a scope set for your work, and that can bring a lot of calm to a team, because suddenly things are not just happening to you, but you're sort of in control in a different way.
Right. So that scope basically is a list of things that members of that team have to do in the course of the coming month.
Yes. So the idea in Agile, we work with something we call a prioritized backlog.
Mm.
And it is just what it says. It's a list of things with the most important thing on top, and then in descending order of things that you need to do.
Right.
Either next coming month or later.
Right.
And things you need to do, things you want to do, and that backlog is preferably populated by your strategy. And if you have employee surveys, that will also go into there, the output from there. And like I said, if you're in a bigger corporate, there will be a strategy on a higher level that you feed into. You will have OKRs, objectives and key results, or other goals. And all of this is then gathered in this backlog. So one thing it gives you is a list of things that need to be done. And another thing it gives you is the necessity to prioritize it.
Okay.
Because it's so easy to have the feeling that everything is priority one, everything needs to be done. And then it just becomes overwhelming.
Right. And would you populate that backlog if you're talking about a leadership team? Would you deliberately populate that backlog with contributions that team has to do for the next level down in the organization?
Absolutely. I think, so we work with leadership standards with Care and Growth.
Right.
Where we then look at the front line, the actual people who do the work for the results. What is it that they're going to do? And if they're going to do that, what does their leader need to do to support them in that and to hold them accountable for, and so forth. So that would then form the leadership standard on whatever level you are. That shows what you need to do. So absolutely, that should go into that should feed into that backlog as well.
Right.
But not only that, because, all these other things that come in, the strategy work, the budgeting, the HR yearly wheel things, all of that can also have, if you're a leadership team, have a care and growth flip, or you put it into your sprint so that you're sure you do things to empower your people.
Okay, I see. So whatever the tasks are that get thrown at this team or that this team has to deal with, you deliberately translate that into, if it's a leadership team, or what does that mean for the next level down in our organization, and what should we be contributing to them to affect whatever needs to be done?
Yes.
Yeah. It's sort of the logic of, don't ask the coach to watch the scoreboard, ask the coach to help the player play the game.
Exactly. And that's another very empowering thing with this way of working, because if we then take the step from the backlog into the sprint backlog, when you then pull work for your coming month or whatever your sprint length is, it's work that you're going to do. It's not a scoreboard thing, but it's activities.
Right. Fantastic. Oh. And talk a little bit about how what gets done relates to a strategy. I mean, if there's kind of like, how do you populate a backlog?
Yeah, so actually, we automatically talk about two of what I find in most teams the biggest challenges are in agile way of working. And one of them is this prioritization of work, because that really takes some courage to say that there is something here that is not highest priority.
Yeah.
And the other challenge is to break down work into doable chunks.
Right.
And so we call those the chunks that we break stories. And then a story has a number of tasks in it. This is just some terminology. And the idea is that the story shall fit into the sprint. So a strategy, for example, a team that I work with now, we only yesterday formulated the wanted position for 2027. Now, that's our leading star, our North Star, what we're aiming for. So if we want to be there 2027, which steps should we take now the next coming month?
And is there room for identifying sort of intermediary cadence steps? So like quarterly signposts, we would call them deliverables in our sort of language. It's kind of at the interspace between a big result and the outcome of specific bits of process that you would do.
No, absolutely. So the deliverable would sometimes be called an OKR, an objective with key results.
Right.
And a 3-month or 90-day cadence of that is great. But even if you were to have, let's continue with the example of the wanted position 2027. If we want to have the agile mindset, we will not put out deliverables all the way through.
That's what I was going to ask. Yes.
No. And that's an important thing. Thanks for bringing that up, because if we do that, we have an old-fashioned project plan. The only thing you know is that you can't keep it. So always know where is your star? What are you aiming for? Or in our terminology in Care and Growth, what's the top of the mountain? But then don't plan every step up, but just for the next coming sprint, or maybe a few sprints if it's it could be a few steps that follow on each other. But be flexible. Agility means flexibility.
So let's say you define that's where we want to be in 2 years' time. That means that we just define what that means for the next quarter. So in the next 90 days, we would probably want to be there. And then you'll have 3 sprints in the course of monthly sprints. And it's the same logic for each sprint. If what we're trying to achieve in this quarter, these 90 days, is X, let's not try and work out every sprint. We do it sprint by sprint.
Yes.
What do we need to do now?
Yeah.
So that you
Because
can
often,
you go in sort of a repeat planning cycle with at every step.
yes, so it is a cyclical
Yeah. Yeah.
way of working. So there
Yeah.
are a few different events that would occur every sprint,
Mm.
starting off with the sprint planning. This is according to Scrum, the most
Yeah. Yeah.
common agile methodology. And Scrum is something that one can read on scrum.org. I mean, it's a
Uh,
well-known
uh,
published
right.
thing. So every sprint would start off with a sprint planning. Then you would have regular, it's called daily meetings. They don't necessarily have to be daily, but
Mm.
preferably a short stand-up meeting in the morning.
Mm. Mm.
It's called stand-up because they shall not be long. So
Mm.
preferably like 15 minutes to see where you're at with the
Mm.
tasks you're doing, if you need help with something.
Mm.
So those you'd have every day. And then at the end of the sprint, preferably you do a retrospective to see
Mm.
how did it go. What would we like to try next time in the next sprint? Something new to try.
Mm.
And also preferably to have a demo to, if nothing else, within the team, recognize what you've done.
Right. Right.
So there's a big element of celebrating things getting done.
Uh-huh. Yeah. What do you
Um,
call it again? Move to done, or what do you say?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Done. Done is the expression. And
Okay.
the thing with, so we say, preferably get things to done rather than start up new things.
Mm.
So you want to have short lead times, fast feedback loops. That all comes with the agile thinking.
Mm.
And it's so easy for the human brain to feel efficient when
Mm.
many things are started up, but it is actually the opposite.
Mm. Mm. No,
So
I can imagine. Yeah.
don't start
Yeah.
anything more up until you have as much as you can finished what's going on.
So, I mean, in my experience, I've often find leadership teams basically being battered by the sort of the crises of the moment.
Mm.
And what I hear you saying is that, I mean, this is sort of the Eisenhower model on steroids.
Yes,
This
I
is
think so.
this is saying, don't, make sure that you keep on that you don't just do the crisis stuff. This builds the organization, the sort of the if you like the that model would call urgent but not important. It builds that deliberately into your cadence of reporting and working and so on.
Yes, only it's the
Yeah.
opposite. Important, not urgent.
Important, not urgent. Yeah, I beg your pardon.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's what we want. And that is where we find all the care and growth activities.
that's exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Speaking of which, I mean, so what I've seen you do with the clients that you've done this with, the leadership teams that you've done this with, is that you then deliberately also include building that team's competence in care and growth
Mm.
as part of what you then, that you sort of you
Mm.
go into a cycle of work, but then in that cycle you'd say, well, okay, no, this month we're going to be doing time and attention, for example, and
Mm.
or clarifying contribution as like the key thing that you'll work with. And so there's two things I'd like to ask you. I mean, the first thing is, why those two modules and why those two kind of first things to build into the competence of a leadership team that you're using this methodology with?
You mean time and attention and clarifying
Yeah,
contribution?
yeah.
Yeah, so time and attention, because most leadership team members' agendas are chock-a-block full.
Mm,
And there's no they say, so what I often hear is that there is no time to work.
right.
Yeah. So they are in meetings from from morning to evening. And what happens when your calendar is quite fully booked is that people need to book a meeting just to talk to you,
Okay.
or you need to book a meeting to talk to someone. So if your calendar is sort of quite full and you hit some sort of breaking point, then it becomes smack full.
Right, right.
And then before you know it, you don't have lunch. You start at 7:30 and you end at 7:30.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So time and attention, therefore, is a very low-hanging fruit to get people's
Mm,
attention.
mm, mm,
And so there are a couple of different things there that I try to do to encourage people at that stage, because,
mm,
they are quite overwhelmed and a little bit taken aback by everything, just trying to juggle everything, all this urgent, important stuff, because everything becomes like a fire that needs to be
mm,
handled. So one thing is, of course, to talk about the care and growth basics.
mm.
What is it that you as a leader is actually here for?
Yeah.
And the exercise when we take down this huge list of everything you want from a leader, down to actually, if you have your intent in place and you're there because you care for people and you want to
Mm,
help them grow, um, that is basically what you need to remember.
mm,
Then you can situation per situation see, what does this situation need from me?
mm,
So there's a lot of freedom and simplification and sort of shoulders coming down with
mm,
that realization. Then with time and attention also, to look into and explore, what does that actually mean in our calendars?
mm,
What's in our calendars now?
mm,
And you will find that many of the meetings is actually with each other.
mm,
The bosses have meetings with each other to coordinate everything, because they
mm,
are so focused on the result, all of them
mm,
still.
mm.
So they then have to, they are operational.
Aha.
Yeah. And so they're busy with each other, so they don't have time with their subordinates. And
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah,
is so commonly
yeah.
happening. So you can look at that, and at least the meetings that they themselves have control over, they can then, take a good look at and decide, does this really need to be a meeting? That's one team I worked with fairly recently. They actually walked through their calendars and decided this could be an email.
Ah,
This
amazing.
would be better as a WhatsApp message.
Ah.
And this could be a conversation,
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah. And also, I remember they decided if they were invited to meetings without an agenda or wanted outcome,
Mm.
they would just, question if they really should be there.
Right, right.
So there are a few things you can do like that to free up some time. So it's an incremental thing. You need
Mm.
to free up a little time so that you can care and growth,
Mm, mm, mm,
do
mm,
care and growth for your people a bit. And
mm,
then that frees up a little bit more time. And so it's a process. That's why time and attention is good to start with.
yeah.
It's also easy to get a team agreement going based on the time and attention module, because they can then within the team agree on how they're going to act in different cases with meetings without agendas, for example,
Mm,
or
mm, mm, mm,
the generosity and courage thing.
mm,
If I
mm.
get a meeting invite and I actually don't think I need to be in that meeting, to be courageous and say, do I really need to be there?
Right, right,
And if someone else then declines your meeting and says, actually, I don't think I need to be in this meeting, to be generous
right.
and realize this is not an evil act
Yes,
against
yes,
me, but
yes, yes.
this person being courageous.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, what's intriguing about what you're describing is that it's not what you, because we are building this whole care and growth idea into how this team actually, this leadership team actually functions. You're describing a world that is incrementally getting less stressed for this team.
Yes.
Because as we say, you're helping them to translate their outcome, their results they're trying to, into a process.
Mm.
In other words, what's in their own hands, what they can do, which by definition creates the conditions where you're no longer overwhelmed. If your outcomes overwhelm you, because it's more often than not, other people do those things. But once you understand what you yourself can do, this is immensely empowering and
Yes.
reassuring, actually.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. And it also, gets you out of victimhood, which is a great thing,
That's
both for
right.
your own well-being and for the team.
That's right.
And it builds confidence, because then they start to get things done. Get things, not just a lot of things ongoing, but it's done. It's done. So I don't have it here now, otherwise I'd demonstrate. But you've heard me use it. I have a little bell.
Yes,
So
yes.
whenever anything is done, I ring a little bell to celebrate. And now with that specific team where I use the bell, if I don't have it and something is put to done, someone else goes ding-a-ling-a-ling.
Right. Wonderful.
It works. You know, you want to celebrate that something is
Yes,
done.
yes, 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 yes. Huh.
So the second thing you asked me about was the clarifying contribution. And there's a lot of great stuff in that module. The understanding of the difference between the result and the contribution, and the importance of seeing the contribution. You know, in corporates, it's not unheard of that managers go into a position, take all the shortcuts and easy ways, produce a great result, and then move on to another position, which they will get because it showed such a great result.
Yeah, but
in the
what they've
previous
actually done is they've actually harvested and destroyed what they found that they walked into. Yeah.
Yeah. I shouldn't laugh. It's very sad.
No, no.
But
I've seen in all sorts of industries, people build big careers on that.
Yeah, because they show good results.
Yeah.
But they sort of leave ruins behind when they
Yeah.
move on,
Yeah.
untroubled. No, it's very anyway. And we don't want to build that culture, of course. So also with the subordinates, regardless of level, we want to articulate and see what is their contribution. And you know, it is a wake-up call for most people. And it's also a bit of a leap of faith to dare to assess performance based on contribution rather than result.
That's correct. Yeah. No.
But once you've seen it, you know, this example we use with the two farmers. The one lazy farmer that is lucky with a hailstorm, and he gets nutrition in the ground and a good crop. And on the other hand, the very hardworking farmer who's unfortunate, and instead he gets frost and he loses the crop. Which one should you reward? It's such an eye-opener.
Yes, yes. You know, then another thing that this Care and Growth by Sprints idea has brought to our business, and it's been low-hanging fruit for, you know, bear in mind, I mean, this business has been going for 3.5 decades. I mean, we're not kids on the block. We've never actually understood what it meant to make a leadership team the locus of what we're looking at. So previously, when we worked, we were basically, you know, we were working with. When we consulted, we sort of put together a culture transformation strategy for a whole organization. That basically turned into two principal activities. The one was like a training activity where you've got bums on seats in training rooms. And the second is a coaching activity. That coaching was always focused on the individual. So in effect, we were only working with individuals. Because the training was aimed at the individual and the coaching was aimed at the individual. What you've brought is quite it's really novel and actually immensely powerful, that the unit of work is no longer the individual. The unit of work is a leadership team. You know, you're helping the team to develop and you're giving the team feedback. So it's a little bit like saying, listen, you know, coach, you aren't the coach of an athlete here. You're the coach of a team. And it's a different way of, you know, it's a different deliverable. Now, I actually think that's in our industry, that's a big gap. I think most coaching that happens is focused on individuals rather than this particular sort of contribution, which I think is a uniquely sort of agile kind of way of dealing with things. And that
Yeah, I
the
was just going
deliverable
to
is the
say.
team. No.
I was just going to say thank you for giving me credit, but it's a very agile idea. Mind you, in agile, it's mostly the development teams, the frontline
Oh,
teams that
okay.
are that's the team-centric idea.
Yeah.
So very few leadership teams that I know of work according to agile
Mm,
methodology still,
mm, mm,
at least in the businesses I've been. But like you say, in agile, the team is the central entity. And if you remember, when I came into Schuitema and we started to talk care and growth,
mm.
um, I was hesitant to sort of look at the individual aspect in the team.
Yes, yes, yes,
Uh,
yes.
and so that has been very eye-opening for me
Uh,
because agile misses that point.
yeah, no,
Uh, in agile, we look at the team as the entity.
no, no.
And but to then recognize that there are a number of individuals
Mm, mm,
interacting in that team,
mm.
uh, obviously there is, but how that
No, no,
the
exactly.
individual
No, no.
um, either
But
empower
you
the
see,
team or
what this thing of working with the team affects, which we were really struggling with before, is translating what we're trying to do into the actual working of the organization. So if your focus point is exclusively the individual,
mm,
there's still an element of take it or leave it with a person who's, I mean,
mm,
so let's say you're dealing with an individual and you're saying, well, you're trying to help the person to um, uh, do this time and attention stuff. They need to clean up their diary. Well, yeah, okay. You have the conversation with the person and they either do it or they don't do it. And in fact, I mean, I've had that. You could be cycling the same conversation like 4 or 5 times and still there's no traction on it. But when you've got a group of a team who together are doing it, it's
mm,
actually it's much more empowering because the problem has now left your hands and has become part of the
mm.
organization's problem. It's
Yeah.
actually a way of integrating what we're trying to do in the actual process of the organization. It turns what we're trying to do into business process
Mm,
rather than just individual conviction and individual initiative.
mm. I think that's true because along the care and growth journey, if you will, their team agreement and their leadership standard will clarify
Yeah,
so that
no, that's
they
right.
stand on their own.
It also means from the point of view of selling an intervention or conceiving of an intervention, there is this idea that we have sort of intuitively challenged, but we've not always kind of followed through in terms of our challenge to this idea. There's this idea that change has to happen across the whole organization and comes from the top.
Yeah.
So that means that when you're trying to sell our work, who you're selling to is very often a senior team, and very often your access into the organization is an HR person, because we are framed. You're seen as a trainer.
Mm.
Now we can do this kind of coaching to any team.
Yes.
We can sell this to a particular, if the leader has a little bit of autonomy that he can kind of buy some services that he needs,
Mm.
we can sell this into that leader.
Yeah.
And so it actually quite dramatically affects our business model because we can now deal with small, discrete, smaller pieces of work.
Mm.
I mean, I'm thinking about the one banking client that you dealt with in Namibia. That actually we were just working with one team. This
Mm.
wasn't an organization-wide intervention.
Mm.
Oh,
No, it's been the same with the big client I'm working with here in Sweden.
oh,
Started off with one leadership team, and then
yeah,
other leadership teams sees that something has happened here.
that's
You know,
right. That's right.
they
Yeah,
seem happy and they get lots of stuff done.
yeah, yeah.
Can you help us? Mm.
Yeah, so this what Care and Growth by Sprints has done. So I'm going to sort of the benefits that I see.
Mm?
And then maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong or expand on what I'm saying. The first benefit of this is that you actually integrate the care and growth stuff that we're arguing for into a working team's day-to-day work.
Mm.
You know, so it becomes it's no longer a nice to have, it is what we do as a team. The second thing that you help to do is you help that team to constantly translate the objectives that they're trying to pursue and achieve into their deliverables for their immediate subordinates. So it
Mm.
becomes far more granulated into what that team should be contributing. The
Mm.
third benefit to doing this is to doing this care and growth by sprints idea is that you you can use the process as a method to incrementally build competence in care and growth.
Mm.
At the same time as getting them to function better and to get leadership stuff doing. It's like, you can pick up every quarter, you can pick up a new theme. Because that's the other thing that what we did before is we'd be working with a team like this. We sort of it's a very rigid approach to the content. If we do this, we would sell a 6-month program, and there'll be 6 iterations once a month. But this from what this does, but that's not the way to do this. I mean, it's only when it's done. When
Done.
people are actually doing it, do we move on? Otherwise, we stick with that theme.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 benefits that I see. Is there anything else that you could add?
Yeah, I was thinking of one thing. I have great compassion for leadership teams' calendars.
Oh.
And this way of doing it allows you to actually help them directly on the ground in their leadership team meetings, for example.
Mm.
Most leadership teams have like weekly sessions of a couple of hours where they work together on stuff.
Yes.
So you can be in those sessions and use that time that is already set aside.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
So it makes it easier to fit it in. Because I think that's one of the biggest struggles for many leadership teams, to actually set aside the time
To do what you're arguing, yeah. No, that's right. I mean, that's sort of a further refinement of the idea of using using the process to build their competence. It's
Yes.
like
The job is the gymnasium.
the job is the gymnasium. And so there's so many things that that the methodology confirms about our approach. We say don't use the person as the means to get the job done. Use the job as an opportunity to teach the person. Your organization, is a gymnasium to help you enable extraordinary people. So that is all making these big ideas practical. Even this idea of you have to translate the shifting from the intent to take to the intent to give is shifting attention from outcome into process. It makes all of these things practical and doable and coachable to a team. So I think it's an immense sort of lift to our game that you've enabled here, Anna. I mean, it's really.
Thank you.
I'm very excited, and I can see. So I also play obviously a sales role in our business, and we've been in the position now. I've been in the position of quite a few opportunities to present this idea. And I mean, you were in some of those conversations. There's immediate interest because it makes absolute sense.
Mm. I think it does. And dare I say, so these agile ideas, they fit and lift care and growth, actually. But even more, care and growth lifts agile.
Why so? How so?
The top one is accountability. Our accountability model for empowerment that is very much lacking. So with the agile principles and agile way of thinking, we get it right to the point where we say, we have to trust the teams. That is correct. and we have to hear what the teams say they can do and listen to what they say they need. All of that is right. Then they have the means and the ability, if we talk care and growth language. But you know, the accountability that actually needs to be individual.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That is missing. So I have, you know, I worked as a line manager before, and there was, for example, in one of those teams, an individual that managed to hide. You know, I didn't realize this man was not performing until finally his team got so upset with him, and because then he misbehaved big time. He went on holiday and left things checked out, and they couldn't, you know, they couldn't finish the work. And it was not until then that it surfaced that he was not pulling his weight.
Okay.
So there are also challenges with the team entity thinking, and there I'm convinced, and I've seen how care and growth, leader to subordinate, is so powerful and crucial. And it's still the thing that many leaders get confused. You know, this of holding people accountable is actually the appropriate thing to do. You're not nice when you're letting them off the hook.
Yeah.
So that's the harder theme we need.
No, I mean, so agile methodology is by definition a methodology for collaboration.
Yes.
So the focus there is kind of egalitarian spirit, and we're doing something somewhat peculiar with that, because we're taking that and we're saying, you know, well, how can we build a hierarchy with this?
Don't ruin this now when you're having such a good idea going.
No, but that is what we're doing. We're saying in building a leadership team.
Yeah. So the thing, you know, with hierarchy is that you need to understand the care and growth thinking, the role of the leader for the subordinate, to understand the beauty of it. Yes. Otherwise, it's something that you just try to get rid of because it's uncomfortable. You know, you find managers say, no, I don't really see myself as manager. I'm one in the gang. And it's like, no, you're not.
No, exactly.
You have another role, man.
Yeah. But without introducing the care and growth idea, if you were just with this idea of agile, then you can't surface that problem.
And what has happened, what I've seen happen in several places with agile transformations, as they are called, is that, you know, it's quite easy to get through with the teams. They get it quickly, but it's the leaders that find it hard because, you know, I have a role now? What's my job? My job is gone. They are self-organizing, autonomous, taking their own decisions. I'm not needed anymore.
So would a leader in an agile in a sort of a programming setup that was run agile, would a supervisory kind of person role not exist, or would that person be a scrum master or what?
Very good question. So in very mature organizations, there are a few examples where there is no hierarchy, where it's pure interactions between teams, and that's beautiful. I mean, that is beautiful. It's just that most of us are not mature enough to handle that. And also it's a scaling thing. I mean, that you can do, I don't know, 5-6 teams. But 5-6 teams, that's 30-40 people maybe. But, you know, if you're going to be thousands and thousands of people, you will need hierarchy. And the problem, if you have bosses who have, of course, been recruited because they are so good at, you know, the traditional way of leading, where they have a lot of control and a lot of drive and sort of pull the team with them. When the people with those qualities don't feel needed, they will start drive something else. So they become disruptive.
That's right. That's correct. No, so actually we do need this happy marriage between the care and growth idea and agile thinking. I mean,
we do. That's you and me.
Well said.
Mm.
Right.
So I do think we have something unique and very useful. And I've now seen it do wonders a few times.
And
It
also
takes a
we've
while.
tested it now. I mean, we've tested
Yeah.
it, so we know the model works. So
Mm.
yes, I'm really looking forward to making this almost the leading edge of our service offering, because it really it's a far better way of pulling in what we're trying to do.
You know, it's a mix of leadership excellence and team excellence. Because it's a team of leaders.
That's right.
So the gymnasium, the job is leadership.
That's right. That's right.
And the team,
That's
the
right.
peers.
Yeah. That's correct. Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you very much, Anna. Is there anything that we need to add to sort of give enough of background to our understanding of care and growth by sprints?
Can I just add something about this with standards in an agile setup?
Please.
So it's a little bit off topic, but I think it can be useful. So you know, when we set up the leadership standard in any type of organization, as we said, we start with the front line, the teams or the workers, whatever sort of business it is, and what they are supposed to do. And if they are supposed to do this, what means ability and accountability does their leader need to provide? So if you would say a mining setup, at that front line, it would be about blasting and getting rock out of the way. It would be quite hands-on things that you have proper checklist for how to do.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
This is what in a typical agile team, there is no such checklist, because there is no best practice. There is not even a good practice. In this, you know, there are different types of work. It can be simple, complicated, complex.
Yeah.
I can never say the word properly. What is called that model? Never mind. If we say that mining rock is in the simple one here, where you can have a checklist, do this, do that. Then you have more complex tasks that you can, you know, it's a lot of moving parts, but you can still figure out how to do it. When you move over to the complex part, where software development, for example, is, and a lot of service development, IT work, you cannot foresee how to do it. Every time you do a thing is the first time it is done.
Right.
Because if it had already been done, you would just reuse that. So it's literally, you know, new development. And therefore, the standards need to be different for that team. They need to figure out what competences they must have to do this. No one else can tell them. They need to figure out, you know, what tools and authorities and so there's a lot more about in the standard, rather than saying how they should do it. It's their standard to find out how to do things and what they need.
Okay. Right.
And you know, in a good autonomous scenario, it's also to get to find and buy what you need, or get that ability or whatever, or else to let your leader know, so that they can help you with it.
Right.
But the responsibility for and what they're accountable for is to find out these things.
But I mean, are you suggesting then that agile methodology and agile thinking isn't useful in simple task environments?
Yes. So you can take the sprint thing is useful anywhere, I dare to say. But the standard will differ in a
I see what you mean.
Agile setup.
Yeah.
You will have highly skilled people who are actually the ones who know best how this is going to be done.
Rather than the boss.
Yeah, the boss is much more the coach there.
Yeah.
Mm.
But I mean, surely that problem of complexity is by definition introduced as soon as you are dealing with a hierarchical position.
That's a very good point. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that so clearly, but yes, because you
Yeah.
cannot foresee how people will behave
No,
when they might
exactly.
get ill, who
Exactly.
will
Yeah.
fall out with who.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's a fantastic insight. Yes. And that is why then it fits so well with leadership teams.
Right.
Mm. Well
Fantastic.
spotted.
Thank you. All right, there. All the
Okay, good.
best.
All the
Thank you for
best.
this.
Bye.
Bye.